You may not realize it yet, but something inside you right now is whispering a story. It sounds calm, it sounds rational. Yet beneath it all, it's fear pulling the strings. Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of something larger than yourself. A new idea, a bold move, a shift. You feel the stir of excitement. And right behind it, a subtle thought arises. Maybe not now. I need more time, more clarity, more proof. That thought masquerades as logic. It seems wise. But notice how it freezes you, how it pulls you back into patterns of waiting, avoiding, playing small. This is the great paradox of our inner world, that fear so often hides behind the mask of reason. It convinces us it is wisdom, prudence, responsibility. It convinces us that staying small, staying safe, is the smartest choice we can make. But the truth is that when fear poses as logic, it steals away our power. It keeps us from stepping into the freedom we seek. It keeps us circling the same familiar patterns, playing the same roles, waiting for a permission that never comes. Fear is a master storyteller, weaving narratives so smooth and believable that we never suspect its disguise. It speaks softly in the language of I should, I need, I must wait, I have to prepare more, I'm not ready, and so we listen. We convince ourselves that this inner voice is the voice of reason, and we allow it to lead. We believe that we are acting responsibly, but in truth, we are surrendering to the very thing that holds us back. Look closely at your own life and the decisions you have made. Notice the times when you hesitated, when you waited, when you told yourself the story that it wasn't yet time, that the conditions weren't perfect. Notice the subtle feelings that accompanied those thoughts, the nervousness, the tension, the tightness in your chest. That is fear disguised as logic. It's a quiet resistance that stops you from moving forward. What makes this so tricky is that fear disguised as logic does not shout. It does not raise alarms. It whispers in a calm, rational voice. It sounds like prudence, like care, like maturity. It appears intelligent and measured. And because it sounds so reasonable, it never triggers our natural alarm bells. This is why so many people live lives of quiet frustration. They long for change, for growth, for the courage to step into something new. Yet they remain stuck, held captive by the invisible chains of their own inner dialogue. They tell themselves they will start tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. They wait for a sign, a guarantee, a perfect alignment of circumstances. And while they wait, life slips quietly by. The modern world adds to this illusion by rewarding rationality and planning. We are taught to weigh pros and cons, to calculate risks, to prepare exhaustively before action. In itself, this is not wrong. Discernment and preparation serve us well. But when discernment becomes a mask for fear, when preparation becomes endless procrastination, the very tools designed to protect us become traps. Recent trends in personal development reveal a growing awareness of this dynamic. Videos and articles about overcoming self-sabotage, how to stop fear-based decisions, and building inner trust have surged in popularity. Millions of seekers recognize the subtle sabotage within their own minds, but struggle to break free. They are awakening to the fact that fear is not always obvious. Sometimes it hides in plain sight behind the voice of logic. Neuroscience supports this inner struggle. Our brains are wired to prefer certainty, predictability, and safety. Change is perceived as a threat, even if the change promises growth or happiness. The part of your brain responsible for survival sends signals warning you to be cautious. This creates a conflict between the part of you that longs to expand and the part that wants to protect. When fear masquerades as logic, it wins the battle by convincing your mind to wait. But waiting is not growth. Waiting is not freedom. Waiting is a stalling of the soul. You may be surprised to realize that you are not lazy, undisciplined, or unmotivated. Instead, you are deeply adaptive, wired to avoid discomfort and protect yourself. This is a survival mechanism working on autopilot. It says, wait, don't risk failure. Wait, avoid vulnerability. Wait, stay in control. And when it speaks in the language of logic, it feels convincing. It feels like the smart choice. Self-sabotage, in many ways, is this internal dynamic playing out. It shows up as procrastination, perfectionism, second-guessing, or playing small. It appears as the inner voice that says, I'm not ready, or I'm not good enough, or I need more time. And underneath all of these voices is fear trying to keep you safe by keeping you stuck. It is important to understand that this fear is not your enemy. It is not a dark force trying to destroy you. It is a part of you, conditioned to protect you from harm. But its protection comes at a cost. It costs you your freedom. It costs you your joy. It costs you your connection to your deepest self. The stories you tell yourself to justify staying small feel like the truth because they serve a purpose. They keep you safe from the unknown. They keep you from risking failure or disappointment. They allow you to avoid the vulnerability that comes with stepping into new territory. But these stories are not your true truth. They are fear's stories. Pause now and gently ask yourself, which stories am I telling myself that keep me small? Which thoughts am I accepting as fact that are really fear in disguise? Notice the energy behind these thoughts. Do they contract your chest? Do they tighten your shoulders? Do they slow your breath? The moment you bring awareness to fear disguised as logic, its power begins to wane. Fear needs the cover of unconsciousness to thrive. When it is illuminated by presence and clarity, it loses its grip. This is why mindfulness, meditation, and inner inquiry are so effective. They allow you to witness the story without being caught in it. As you learn to distinguish fear from true guidance, you begin to reclaim your power. True guidance does not demand proof or perfect conditions. True guidance does not freeze or delay. It invites you forward with a sense of calm certainty. It may not promise a smooth path, but it promises alignment with your deepest self. Trust is the antidote to fear disguised as logic. But trust is not reckless. Trust is the wisdom of the soul that knows beyond the mind's calculations. Trust is the quiet knowing that you are supported even when the way is uncertain. The mind will resist trust because it cannot guarantee outcomes. It prefers the safety of calculation, control, and delay. But living by fear disguised as logic is a slow erosion of your spirit. It is a life lived beneath your potential. You are invited now to lean into trust, to listen beyond the rational voice and sense the deeper wisdom within, to notice the difference between hesitation that contracts and invitation that expands. This is a journey of awakening to the subtle ways fear holds you captive. It is a journey of learning to recognize the whispers of fear beneath the mask of logic and choosing, again and again, to follow the voice of trust instead. As you step forward in trust, you will notice your life opening in ways you could not imagine. The energy that once held you back will begin to dissolve. The resistance will soften. The path ahead may still be uncertain, but you will move with a new sense of freedom, courage, and clarity. This is not a path of perfection or certainty. It is a path of presence and surrender. It is a path of choosing your freedom moment by moment, even when fear still whispers. And so begins the true journey, the journey from fear disguised as logic into the light of trust. And so begins the true journey, the journey from fear disguised as logic into the light of trust. But this journey is not a sudden leap. It is a gentle unfolding, a slow peeling back of layers where fear has built its subtle fortress. Fear has shaped your decisions in ways you might barely notice, weaving invisible threads that tether you to the familiar, the comfortable, the known, even when you long for something more. Every choice you have made, consciously or unconsciously, carries the imprint of this dance between fear and trust. Sometimes the imprint is faint, sometimes it is bold and defining, but its presence is undeniable. It whispers through hesitation, it lingers in delay, it hides behind good reasons that keep you from stepping forward. To understand how deeply fear disguises itself as logic, consider the patterns that emerge in your life, the ways you might avoid risk, delay decisions, or play small in your relationships, your work, your dreams. Notice how often the mind generates reasons to stay put. I'll wait until I am more prepared. I don't want to rock the boat. I'm protecting myself from disappointment. These thoughts feel reasonable. They seem intelligent. But look beneath them and you will find fear's quiet hold. This pattern of playing small is not a failure of willpower or character. It is a survival strategy, one your mind has crafted to keep you safe. But safe from what? From the unknown, from vulnerability, from change itself. The unknown can feel like a void, an abyss of uncertainty. Vulnerability can feel like exposure, a risk of being hurt or rejected. Change can feel like loss, a break from what is familiar, and so fear uses logic to build walls. It persuades you that staying small is wise, that avoiding risk is prudent, that waiting is responsible. It turns hesitation into virtue and delay into strategy. And while you might be aware of the desire for something more, the voice of fear convinces you to silence that desire, to bury it beneath rational thought. This subtle sabotage is at the heart of many struggles with self-doubt and procrastination. You want to move forward, but something inside you hesitates. You want to speak your truth, but the mind reminds you of consequences. You want to take a leap, but the inner voice warns you of dangers. These internal conflicts are the battleground where fear wears the mask of logic. Yet within this battleground, there's also possibility. Awareness is the first step to liberation. When you begin to notice how fear shapes your decisions, you gain the power to choose differently. You can begin to ask, is this thought truly guiding me, or is it fear holding me back? The more you practice this inquiry, the more you dismantle the walls fear has built. Trust, on the other hand, calls you gently to remember who you truly are beyond the mind's calculations. It invites you to step into the unknown with a heart open to possibility. Trust is not a denial of risk or uncertainty. It is the courage to move forward despite them, grounded in the knowing that you are supported and guided. When fear disguises itself as logic, it leads to patterns of avoidance and playing small. But when trust leads, it opens the door to growth, freedom, and the unfolding of your fullest potential. As you continue this journey, you will learn to recognize the subtle signs that fear is at work, the hesitation that feels like overthinking, the need for endless preparation, the paralysis that masquerades as caution. You will begin to see these patterns as invitations to return to your deeper wisdom, to choose trust over fear, presence over resistance. This is the path of transformation, not a battle to defeat fear, but a dance to dissolve its hold through awareness and presence. With each step, you reclaim the space inside yourself where true freedom lives. And beyond these inner battles lies an even more delicate truth, that the mind's craving for certainty is itself a form of illusion. The very need to control outcomes, to gather endless information, to build impenetrable defenses against risk, is a way to avoid the vulnerability inherent in true freedom. When you recognize this, you can begin to loosen your grip on the idea that logic must always be the final arbiter of your choices. Logic, in its highest form, is a tool, not a prison. It serves you best when it supports the voice of your deeper self, the voice of trust and openness. But when it becomes the instrument of fear, it shuts down possibility and dims your inner light. This shift requires courage, the courage to question the mind's reasonable voice, to see through its disguises, and to step into uncertainty with an open heart. It requires patience, for fear will resist this awakening. It will return again and again, dressed in new forms, whispering new reasons to delay or retreat. Yet every time you shine the light of your awareness on these patterns, you weaken their hold. Every time you choose trust over hesitation, you expand the space within where freedom grows. This is the subtle alchemy of transformation, a gentle unraveling of fear's grip, revealing the limitless potential that has always been there. Your decisions are the language through which your inner landscape speaks. When you choose from fear disguised as logic, your life story becomes one of limitation and postponement. When you choose from trust, your story unfolds into one of courage and growth. Notice the small moments where you give yourself permission to move despite the voice of fear. Notice the shifts that happen when you listen to the quiet knowing rather than the loud doubts. These moments, though subtle, mark the beginning of a new pattern, one where you become the author of your life, not the prisoner of your fears. As you practice this, the voice of fear will lose its grip. It may still speak, but you will hear it differently. You will feel the tension beneath its words and choose not to follow. You will feel the contrast between contraction and expansion, between resistance and flow. And so the journey continues, not as a battle to be won, but as a dance to be lived. A dance where fear and trust meet, and you learn to move with both, guided by a deeper wisdom that transcends the mind's logic. This dance invites you into presence, into the moment where true choice exists. It is here in this presence that you find the freedom to live fully, to move forward with clarity, courage, and grace. And as you live from this place, you become a beacon for others, showing by your example that fear need not rule, that logic can serve, and that trust is always available, even in the face of uncertainty. This dance invites you into presence, into the moment where true choice exists. It is here in this presence that you find the freedom to live fully, to move forward with clarity, courage, and grace. But to truly move beyond fear disguised as logic, you must reclaim the space of choice that is yours by birthright. For far too long, decisions have been shaped not by your authentic self, but by unseen forces of protection and avoidance. This reclamation is not about force or willpower. It is about awakening to the fact that beneath every thought of hesitation lies a choice waiting to be seen and made consciously. Begin by understanding that the voice of fear, even when wrapped in reason, is never the only voice speaking inside you. There is another voice, the voice of inner guidance, the voice of the deeper self that patiently waits for you to listen. It is quieter, subtler, often drowned out by the chatter of the mind, but is always present. This inner guidance does not insist or push. It offers gentle nudges, a feeling of ease, a lightness in the chest, a quiet knowing. When you tune into it, you discover that true wisdom transcends logic. It flows from a place beyond calculation, a place of harmony, intuition, and trust. Learning to differentiate these voices takes practice. It requires that you pause before making decisions, inviting yourself into stillness and presence. In that stillness, listen not to the words, but to the energy behind them. Does the thought bring contraction or expansion? Does it close you off or open your heart? Does it bring tension or peace? When you notice fear disguised as logic, thank it for its concern and invite it to step aside. Assure it that you are safe to move forward. This simple act of acknowledgement weakens fear's grip and opens the door to freedom. As you cultivate this awareness, you begin to reclaim your power of choice. You learn that you are not the victim of your fears, but the conscious creator of your path. You learn that hesitation is not a mandate, but an invitation to deeper inquiry. With each conscious choice made from trust rather than fear, you rewrite the script of your life. You step out of patterns of avoidance and into patterns of growth. You build momentum, and with momentum comes confidence. And confidence feeds back into trust, creating a cycle of liberation. This process is deeply practical. It transforms the intangible work of inner awareness into tangible shifts in your daily life. For example, when a fear-based thought arises, perhaps telling you to wait or to avoid a challenge, pause and identify it. Name it. This is fear disguised as logic. Then breathe, center yourself, and ask, what would trust say right now? What choice would bring me closer to my true self? This practice, repeated over time, rewires the brain's habitual responses. It strengthens the neural pathways of trust and weakens those of fear. Science supports this. Neuroplasticity shows us that our brains are not fixed but adaptable, capable of changing with intentional focus and awareness. Furthermore, as you reclaim your choice, you naturally break free from self-sabotage. The urge to delay, to overthink, to undermine yourself loses its foothold. Instead, you move forward with purpose and clarity, guided by your inner wisdom rather than external pressures or internal fears. It's also essential to remember that this journey is compassionate. Fear has served a purpose. It protected you when survival was paramount. Now, in this moment, you are invited to thank fear for its service and gently release it from the role of decision maker. You might notice resistance to this shift. Fear often feels familiar, a companion that, however limiting, is known. Choosing trust over fear can feel vulnerable and unsettling. But vulnerability is the birthplace of courage, and courage is the pathway to true freedom. As you continue, you'll find that your relationship with fear changes. It no longer rules you from the shadows, but becomes a messenger, offering insights without controlling your actions. You hold the reins, directing your life from a place of conscious choice. This transformation ripples outward. As you embody trust and conscious choice, your interactions with others shift. You become a source of calm and clarity. Your presence invites others to explore their own fears and to reclaim their power. In this way, your personal journey contributes to a collective awakening, a movement from fear-based living to trust-based being. This is the essence of healing, not just for yourself, but for the world. Remember, reclaiming choice is not a destination, but a continual practice. Each day, each moment, offers an opportunity to choose again. Sometimes you will falter, sometimes fear will reassert itself. This is natural. The practice is to return again and again to presence, to awareness, and to trust. With patience and commitment, the fortress of fear will transform into a gateway of freedom. You will walk through it with grace, no longer held captive by logic that hides fear, but empowered by wisdom that shines with truth. You walk through the gateway of freedom, carrying the wisdom that fear disguised as logic is only a story you no longer need to believe. This freedom is not a distant goal. It is available in this moment, here and now, as soon as you choose to see clearly. It is the choice to live fully, courageously, and authentically, regardless of what the mind predicts or fears. Living beyond fear's mask means embracing uncertainty with open arms. It means stepping into the unknown without the guarantee of safety or success, but with the trust that every step is guided and supported. This is the ultimate act of faith, not in others or in circumstances, but in yourself and in the unseen intelligence that flows through all life. When you embrace this freedom, the mind no longer dominates your decisions with endless calculations. Instead, your heart becomes the compass, your intuition the guide. The energy of hesitation gives way to the flow of inspired action. You move not because you are free from fear, but because you no longer let fear decide your path. This transformation changes everything. Relationships deepen as you bring authenticity to your interactions. Work becomes a field of creative possibility rather than a source of stress or limitation. Dreams that once seemed distant begin to take shape in your daily life. You no longer postpone living, you live now. You may find that fear still visits occasionally, but it is different now. It comes as a reminder, a whisper to pause and reflect, not as a command to retreat. You greet it with compassion, recognizing it as part of your journey, but no longer its prisoner. In this new relationship, fear serves you by highlighting areas that need your presence and healing. Remember, the mask of logic will attempt to return, dressed in new forms, using new words. It may convince you that waiting longer is wise, that perfection is necessary, or that the risk is too great. Yet, you know better. You have cultivated the inner knowing that calls you beyond hesitation, beyond doubt, beyond limitation. Your life becomes a testament to trust in yourself, trust in the flow of life, trust in the power of choice. Each moment is an opportunity to step more fully into this trust, to practice courage, and to live the freedom that is your birthright. Freedom is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. It is the art of dancing with uncertainty and vulnerability, with the full awareness that fear will arise, but does not have to dictate your response. It is the choice to act from love, curiosity, and openness instead of contraction and retreat. In living this way, you come to understand that fear disguised as logic is simply a call for your attention, a signal that there is growth available if you are willing to move through the discomfort. It becomes a teacher, guiding you gently toward deeper self-awareness and expanded possibility. This expanded awareness ripples into every corner of your life. Decisions once paralyzed by overthinking become opportunities for inspired action. Relationships flourish as you show up with honesty and presence. Your work becomes an expression of your true potential, no longer confined by the limits fear once imposed. You discover that trust is not a fixed state, but a practice, a moment-to-moment choice to lean into the unknown with courage. Sometimes trust feels fragile, but it grows stronger each time you honor it. Each time you choose to move forward, despite fear's whispers. The journey is not without setbacks. There will be moments when the old voice returns, louder and more convincing than before. When this happens, remind yourself that growth is a spiral, not a straight line. Each return of fear is an opportunity to practice your new way of being, to meet it with gentleness and awareness rather than resistance. In time, the boundaries between fear and trust begin to blur. Fear loses its power to control, and trust becomes your natural state. You live with an open heart, willing to risk, to fall, and to rise again. You become a beacon of courage, not because you are fearless, but because you have chosen freedom over fear. Your life unfolds in vibrant colors, rich with possibility and meaning. You are no longer held hostage by the invisible chains of fear disguised as logic. Instead, you move with grace and confidence through the unpredictable dance of life. This freedom invites you to embody your highest self, the one who knows that life is a continuous flow of challenges and opportunities, of endings and beginnings. You understand that every moment holds the potential for awakening, for transformation, for deep peace. Living beyond fear's mask is living in alignment with your true essence. It is a commitment to authenticity, presence, and trust. It is the recognition that you are more than your fears, more than your doubts, more than the stories your mind tells. As you embrace this freedom, you inspire others to do the same. Your journey becomes a ripple in the vast ocean of collective awakening, showing that liberation is possible for all who choose to see clearly and trust deeply. So take this moment to breathe deeply into your freedom. Feel the expansiveness within you, the limitless potential waiting to be realized. Know that you are supported by an unseen intelligence that moves through all things, guiding you with love and grace. The choice is always yours, to live in fear disguised as logic, or to step boldly into the light of trust. Choose freedom. Choose courage. Choose to live fully and fearlessly, because when you live beyond fear's mask, your life becomes a sacred dance of joy, possibility, and profound peace.